Welcome. This is Alteman reporting live from our 4 meters below sea level studio in downtown Almere. Today I want to talk a little bit about the HPC infrastructures workshop that took place earlier this month, and that was focused around the 3 pre-exascale systems that are currently procured by the EuroHPC joint undertaking together with hosting entities. Pre-exascale systems are systems that are, let's say, 200 petaflops or more performance, LINPACK performance, which is used in the benchmark for the top 500. So that are systems that would be somewhere 2-3 in the top 500. Because it's systems which are paid by the joint undertaking. The first presentation was given by Floris Evangelos, and he was talking about the current state of the EuroHPC joint undertaking. And the most important thing there was that he mentioned that since September the joint undertaking is now an autonomous legal entity, which means that it can sign contracts and it can also go into negotiations formally. Before that it was managed by the European Commission. So now the governing board is the only important entity in the joint undertaking that can take all the formal decisions. They also have new offices in Luxembourg, so this is where they are in Luxembourg. Well, actually they're on the first floor. I don't know whether this or that, but they have just one floor there. Then Floris Evangelos was talking a little bit about the contracts that were already signed at the time of the workshop, which were the Meluxina supercomputer in Luxembourg. So it's a 12 petaflop system. So these are the petaflop systems, not the pre-exascale. And the 6.8 petaflop system in Maribor in Slovenia. Later, a few days later, also the contract was signed for the system with the unpronounceable name in the Czech Republic. That's a 40.8 million system and 9 petaflops Air Max performance. The unpronounceable name will be changed because they have now a contest, and you can enter the contest and propose an unpronounceable name or another name which is easily pronounceable, I hope for the latter. And of course there should be a good reason why the machine should call that way. The other systems, petascale systems, are still under negotiation. You can see here that the first system is expected to be operational in May 2021. The one in Portugal will be operational somewhere in October, and here it says that the Peta SC system will be operational in March 2021. I'm not sure, could be later. The 3 pre-exascale systems, so the currently the Leonardo system, which is here in the middle, the contract is signed a few days later than the workshop. I'll come to that later. And it will be operational somewhere in the 3rd quarter. The LUMI contract will be signed mid next week, and that will be available in the 2nd quarter of 2021. And the MareNostrum is a little bit behind that, and it will be operational somewhere in the 4th quarter. So that means that the pre-exascale systems will enter the top 500 in November next year earliest. Because they are just not ready before. Well, perhaps part of the LUMI, but the other ones not. So it's only in November 2021 that we can see the pre-exascale systems in the top 500. The Floris Evangelos was then also talking a little bit about the next framework program. So we can see that the financing will run until 2027. But of course, if you buy a machine, say 2026, you need to also maintain it for 5 years or so. That's why it here says the period 2033. So this is the operation period. This is the financing framework period. The first system that was then discussed was the Leonardo, and it was Mirko Setari who was talking about it. So that's Mirko, and he was mainly talking about the procurement process and the lessons learned from that. So the important thing to realize is that Cinica, he's from Cinica, the hosting entity for Leonardo, they have a roadmap which until now ends somewhere in 2027, and they hope to have a post-exascale system somewhere in that time frame, so from the multi-framework program that I just mentioned. So that's a roadmap, and they have some technology roadmap that's underlying that. The pre-exascale system, actually, they ended up with some characteristics of how it should look and some requirements. And the basic idea is that you have a general purpose part, you have a booster or accelerator part, and you have a data-centric part. So this is basically for, let's say, AI applications. This is for the general HPC applications, and it's more for the big data applications. Of course, real applications you can use the three of them. The goal was to have a HPC system and a 5-year maintenance contract. And actually the acquisition is 120 million, but there's some additional, the same amount of money for running the system. The global vision of the consortium that is underlying and that's helping the whole system was to have a sustained computing capability. And of course, I wanted to use the experience that they already had, and it should be a pathway to more heterogeneous systems. So this is again a view of the global architecture that they have in mind. So it's very global. Basically, it says that they want to have a 200 gigabit low latency interconnect, which more or less narrows it down. The accelerator, actually they didn't have much requirements. And why didn't they have much requirements? Basically, and here you can see that they don't have a hard requirement. What they wanted to do is, in the procurement process, is to have a competitive dialogue. So to have a competitive dialogue process with the vendors. And in the end, they negotiated with 3 different vendors, which came to the end round. And for them, that worked out very good. So they say that's a good way to do it. Have a competitive dialogue process and don't have too much hard requirements from the start. And of course, it should meet their technology roadmap. So it should be on the pathway to the heterogeneous systems that they have in mind for a few years from now. And of course, there should be a cost performance analysis. He did not mention too many details, but actually the contract of Leonardo was awarded a few days later. And from that, from the press conference, we did extract this data. So the machine will be delivered by Atos. It will be a Bull Sequania with 150 racks. It will have Intel Sapphire nodes in the end for the CPU performance. The performance, the LINPACK performance, will be exactly, or at least 248 petaflops of LINPACK performance, which if it was installed already today would be the 2nd fastest machine in the world after the Fugaku, but before the summit. But of course, next year things have changed. The floating point 16 peak performance, which is mainly used in AI, so, and that's in what they call the booster, is 10 exaflops, which is quite fast. NVIDIA claims it will be the fastest AI, what they call supercomputer, let's say the AI computer. But we have to see, because it could easily be that there's another system just as fast or faster when this is already installed. 5 petabyte memory, 100 petabyte of storage, and it's a Mellanox, which is also now NVIDIA network. So that's the Leonardo. Then Pekka Maikonen explained the LUMI supercomputer. LUMI is the most northern of the 3 pre-exascale systems. It's in Finland, and it's by a consortium. And actually, each pre-exascale system is supported by a consortium. And LUMI consortium is by far the largest with 10 partnering countries. The countries that are partner of the consortium, in this case of LUMI, get half of the capacity. The other half of the capacity is for the joint undertaking and distributed amongst all European researchers. The timeline of LUMI is, there's a system procurement which was finished a few months ago, and the system contract will be announced in a few days from now. Then the system installation will be somewhere in the first quarter of next year. The general availability will be in the second quarter of next year, and then the system will be in operations until 2026, the end of 2026. The architecture of LUMI is also quite heterogeneous already. So they have CPU partitions with different types of memory. They have storage, different type of storage. For instance, there's Ceph storage, object-oriented storage, and there's also a parallel file system based on Lustre. So, and there's a GPU partition. So they have several partitions used for different types of applications, and of course applications can also use more partitions. So the actually another name for LUMI is the Queen of the North. I like that name. LUMI is okay, also a nice name, and they call that a leadership resource, and it's designed as a general purpose high performance computing, a general purpose supercomputing. And it will also help in modernizing HPC applications because it's a big system with different kinds of aspects that you can use, different kinds of parts that you can use. Then the next one was Sergio Girona. He's from the Barcelona Supercomputing Center. He was talking about the MareNostrum, but actually he was talking about the infrastructure supporting the MareNostrum5. The reason is that that's the stage where they are in currently, and they also had some very nice observations about the infrastructure that's needed for such a computer. First, of course, you need a building. This is the new building of the Barcelona Supercomputing Center, so it's away with the chapel. Well, it's not away with the chapel, but a lot of things of hardware will move out of the chapel to the new building, and of course the people that are working, currently about 700 in Barcelona Supercomputing Center, they will also find a part there. And the new headquarters are also designed to be able to house the MareNostrum5, which will also be quite a big machine with some requirements in terms of electricity, power, cooling, etc. The hosting consortium for the MareNostrum5 is smaller, but still there are 4 countries involved there. It's also a heterogeneous system already, which is based on the experience that they have now. The MareNostrum4 is also not a monolithic system, but the MareNostrum5 will be a little bit more heterogeneous. Sergio Girona was then talking about the site preparation, which means the laying down all the cabling and laying down all the cooling equipment, etc. So taking care that the machine can be fitted in there once it has been acquired. The original idea was that it should be ready in September 2020, but because of the COVID crisis, which also very hard struck Barcelona and Spain, the expected date is now April next year. They have a virtual computer room video already, so you can have a virtual experience and walk through the computer room and walk through the new building. And one of the nice things that you can see there is that there will also be a very wide corridor for the visitors so that they can overlook the MareNostrum5 doing its pre-exascale calculations. Then Herbert Huber closed the workshop. Actually, he's from LRZ, so he was also talking a little bit about the cooling techniques that they did there. and about the system that they have there, which is the SuperMUC NG, which was installed and operational in 2018. So it's now already, let's say, midlife. But he was also explaining a little bit about the cooling there. And he was announcing the next physical workshop, so the next HPC Infrastructures in Europe workshop, which hopefully will take place somewhere in April next year in Garching, near Munich. If you want to know more about the systems, so have a look at the data, you can go to our website EuroHPC.eu, and you can there find on the systems the details of the machines which are acquired by the EuroHPC joint undertaking. And if you go to the bottom, you can find the latest. So we already included the details of the 3 petascale systems that are known, of the Leonardo system, and we will also include the details of the LUMI next week and the other petascale systems when they come along. If you are interested in more information about high performance computing, about the people that are working there, then you can stay tuned in to our channel and come back to see more interviews with people, more reports on high performance computing events and other things that have to do with high performance computing. So I hope to see you again on this channel, and until then, bye bye. For Premier Magazine, this was Artemen reporting.